Welcome everybody and wish everyone a good Chodesh. It's Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Kol hakavod for leaving the house in the cold at night when you could be comfortable in your own home, relaxing and watching it on Zoom. Thank you. Tonight's inspiration is based on a story that inspired me, that the Rebbe shares about the power of a Jewish woman. There was a man by the name of Reb Gavriel Nosei Chen. Reb Gavriel was a very philanthropic Jew who helped a lot of people with tzedakah, specifically Pidyon Shavuim, helping people who are in jail, bailing them out. The wheel of fortune turned, and unfortunately, his business was not doing well, and he was not able to give tzedakah like he always did. One day, he got a knock at the door, and the Alter Rebbe sent him a shulach to collect money because he always gave a very generous amount. And unfortunately, I tell Tati the mic's not working. Unfortunately, this man's parnasa was not the same, so he didn't want to say no. He felt very let down. He came home, and his wife sees her husband is distraught and said, "Honey, what's the matter?" And he confided in his wife, "I feel so bad. I always gave so much charity, and I don't want to say no. I don't know what to do." And his wife, a very special Eshet Chayil, said, "Honey, don't worry. I'll take care of this." They were married 25 years with no children. And she said, "No problem." Imagine being married 25 years. You have lots of jewelry, every birthday, every anniversary. So what did she do? She took her pearls and some of her jewelry and went to a pawn shop, and she sold her jewelry and took the money, and she started taking the coins, and she started polishing each coin one by one. And she said, "Hashem, just like I'm polishing these coins, please make my husband's mazal shine. Look, we have no children, and now also no parnasa. We want to have parnasa to be able to give tzedakah, Hashem." So what happened? She polished it. She made a bag for her husband and gave it to her husband and said, "Here, honey, here is money. Go give it to the Alter Rebbe so you could do the mitzvah of tzedakah, the mitzvah of Pidyon Shavuim, helping people in captivity." So the husband right away ran to do the mitzvah so he shouldn't get distracted and say, "Oh my, I have bills to pay. I have to pay for food." He ran to do the mitzvah. He took the bag of coins and he traveled to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, the minute he sees the bag of coins, what did he do? He spilled out the bags and coins, and his eyes were startled. He puts his hands on his forehead like this in dveikos, and he says, "These coins are super magical. These coins are super special. I want to know what's the story behind these coins. These are not typical coins. I need to know what these coins are." And he said, "I didn't want to tell you, but business has not been the same, unfortunately. Things are going, not so easy for us. And you asked for charity, and I always gave charity, and I wanted to do it. And when my wife saw how sad I am, how distraught I am, she said, 'You're a chassid, ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. You have to be happy. Don't let the Satan try to make you down and sad.'" And she went and she polished these coins to do the mitzvah with love, with joy, with mesirat nefesh. So the Alter Rebbe closes his eyes and says, "Your mazal is changing. First of all, you should change your business. You should go into diamonds and pearls. You should become a jeweler, and you're going to be super successful. Not only that, Hashem is going to bless you with sons and daughters after 25 years of having trouble with infertility, and Hashem is going to bless you with a lot of wealth." So Reb Gavriel feel, and also he said, you're going to be so loved by everyone that your name is going to be changed from Reb Gavriel to Reb Gavriel No Seichen. So he travels to his wife with a big smile on his face, with such glee, with such happiness. And he says to his wife, I just can't tell you what good news I have to share. And the wife is so happy. And Baruch Hashem, within a few years, they had sons, daughters. They lived a long life. He lived 110 years. And the wife outdid him by 2 years. And then not only that, so the Rebbe brings, as you see over there, that wife with the coins over there by the centerpiece. Could you move the video over there? So the coins over there, the wife polishing the coins, that's the inspiration of tonight. What is the message for me and you? Tonight, we have a speaker who's going to ignite our neshama, to remind us, as the Akeret HaBayit, as the foundation of the home, we have such power. All the blessing that came to the husband was because of one person, the wife. She didn't just give charity. What did she do? She did it with Mesirat Nefesh, Behidar. You could have just given the charity here. Here's tzedakah. What did she do? She went and polished each one. She did it with her whole neshama, with her whole chayut. And that is the message for us as women. All the blessing of our husband and our home and our family comes from the wife, from us being careful in our mitzvot. You know, now, for example, when it comes to, we're doing the 4-week Tarsa Mishpacha review, we could say, you know, it's really hard to do a b'dika by carpool time. It's 4 o'clock, I have carpool, it's an inconvenient time. I'll just do, okay, I did the first, I did the last, I'm putter. No. What do we learn from the wife's name, by the way, was Chana, which is the 3 mitzvahs of a woman, Chala, Nida, Hadlakat, Nera. What did she do? She did the mitzvah she didn't have to polish it. She could have just given charity. But the mazel came because she went above and beyond. So each and every one of us tonight has the power, and we're going to gain those tools to be the best wife, to make our mitzvah shine. So on your seat, there is a notebook. Could you zoom in on the notebook? And there, if you open it, there is index card. At the end of the night, you'll write, if you have any questions, you'll put it inside and I'll collect it. And the speaker at the end of the class will answer any questions after she speaks. And at the end of the class, I have a lot of thank yous, because this does not happen overnight. I have a lot of special, dear friends and family and a beautiful Baruch Hashem community behind it. So I want to thank everyone. And we're very lucky tonight to have my dear colleague, a mikvah.org teacher and a safety kid expert, mom and teacher and wife and everything, educator, inspire us tonight to make our mitzvahs shine. Thank you.
Okay. So my voice is pretty loud. So yeah, I get my kids tell me that all the time. Ma, your voice is really loud. Get in the way of the decor. I'm just gonna clear up some of the stuff here. So my name is Ruthie Sperlin, and I am honored and very happy to be here tonight. And not just because I'm able to be in LA and spend time with my parents and my sister and my brother. That's when Simi called me, like, I think it was 5 months ago. I was like, California, sure, I'm here. And then I was like, what do you want me to do? What do I have to say? But yeah, so that was a good call, Simi, because anything that gets me to LA is amazing. So thank you. But no, I'm actually really, really honored to be here because I am very, very passionate. I'm weird. I can't hold it. So I'll talk really loud till I get it, okay? I am super passionate about this mitzvah, and I want to give it over in a way that is clear, that is understandable and relatable. And in that vein, I will do my absolute best. And I'm happy to take questions. And I'm going to say with 100% certainty that I will not have all the answers to your questions. And some questions I won't be able to answer. And I'll leave my email. I don't have a problem. And I'll leave my cell phone number for anyone to reach out to me privately to ask any questions that I can't answer here. And I will do my best to help you, to guide you, and to get you the advice and what you need for your marriage. So one of the things I do before any class that I give is, aside from asking the Abishter to help me to have the right words and asking for the Rebbe's bracha that my words are well received, I have a habit of going onto Chabad.org. And I look to find a connection to the parsha, to the day. And today, we all got really, really lucky because today is Rosh Chodesh Shvat right now. And it is a day that is specifically connected to women. Indeed, although the semi-holiday of Rosh Chodesh is celebrated by both men and women, there is a special connection to the day for women specifically. And this expresses itself in the fact that women abstain from certain forms of work on this day. Do the laundry, you're not allowed to sew, other things. The special connection between women and Rosh Chodesh goes all the way back to the story of the THLA. And the women were the only ones to right away. They declined and refused to participate in the fundraising effort for the aid. And they refused to surrender their jewelry. And as a reward, it is written that they were given Rosh Chodesh as a day which they observe more than men. And the Rebbe elaborates on this. And the Rebbe says, it explains that the women's non-participation stemmed from their greater faith, their greater emunah. Though they had just spent more than 2 centuries in idolatry steeped Mitzrayim. And in fact, that explains why the men caved so quickly at the hint of trouble and problems. The women's faith remained unshakable. And they considered the idea of making an idol completely unthinkable. And the Rebbe continues to explain that all of Yiddishkeit is based on this strong faith and on this strong emunah. And though sometimes it can be fuzzy and we can question and we wonder, it is still the women who in every single situation, we remain steadfast in our faith and we pass it on to our children and for future generations. And it's the women who, through our strength and through our emunah, ensure our nation's survival. Specifically through the keeping of Taras HaMishpach. And everyone here tonight is actually demonstrating your commitment to this mitzvah by being here. And if you're on Zoom, whatever that might be. And by the way, anybody who is on Zoom, I think it's important that you make sure that you're in a room that's private. That's a side note, that no one else is there with you or have your headphones in. And even though this mitzvah can be difficult at times, we still maintain our strength and we still do what the Abishter asks. And while I was going to, I have, Gabriel's story is one of my favorite stories to tell. I will say one amazing point about it, and that is what the Alter Rebbe did say when he looked at the coins. He said that nothing shone as these coins are shining so brightly. They shine as bright as the kiyah in the Mishkan. And what was the kiyah made out of? The kiyah was made out of the mirrors that the women in Mitzrayim used when Pharaoh decreed that all the boys should be thrown in the river. What did the men decide to do? The men decided we have to divorce our wives because we don't want our children to be killed. And the righteous women knew with every fiber of their being that there is no way that the Abishter wanted us to separate from our husbands. So they took their copper mirrors and they beautified themselves. They brought them to the fields. They seduced their husbands to be with them. What was the product of that? 6 babies at a time that were plucked out of the river. Those children were called the Tzivais Hashem. Those children were the first ones to recognize the Abishter at Kriyas Yamsuf. And when it came time to donate to the Mishkan, the women came first. And what did they bring? They brought their mirrors. And Moshe Rabbeinu was a little bit hesitant. He's like, I don't know, should I take the mirrors? And the Abishter, it says in Medrash, it says, Chavivim Allah. They are precious. So understand that every step of this mitzvah can be difficult, but we, the women, we are the link in the chain, and it is our mitzvah. So with that, let me just say that I am grateful and I am humbled to be here to talk about this special topic, bringing divinity into your marriage. I don't really like to use the terminology behind closed doors because that's not what it's about. We want to understand how can we bring the divine in. And we want to enhance our marriage, and we enhance our marriage by bringing in the divine. And let me explain that a little bit. So this topic is an important one, and it's one that everyone always has questions about, and we're always searching for more information. And that's totally understandable. And tonight we are going to approach this topic, like I said, from the perspective of the divine. We want to bring the Eibishter into our marriage. That's what it is. What does the Eibishter ask us? What does the divine ask us? And how do we bring the Eibishter into such a physical part of our marriage? And it requires a lot of unpacking and a deeper understanding of what a Jewish marriage is all about. And a Jewish marriage is based on one key point. Each of us understands that a Jewish holy marriage is made up of 3 partners: a husband, a wife, and a husband. It's all 3. We are 3 partners, all of us committed under the chuppah to keeping Hashem's prescription for a Jewish marriage. Our marriages are based on the basic tenet, the basic idea, that by having Hashem in our marriage, we are bringing Kedusha into our homes. And we are then fulfilling our ultimate purpose. And that is to create a dir b'tachem, to create a mikdash ma'at. The asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'sayim. Create for me a dwelling place, and I will dwell there. Each and every one of us have our mini Beis Hamikdash. We are every single day, we are making our homes holy, sacred, kadosh, by doing mundane things. You make a bracha on your cup of coffee, you elevated your cup of coffee. You put a nickel in the pushka, you elevated that nickel. We don't even realize how often we bring the Eibishter in. We do it all the time. Tonight, we're specifically going to talk about bringing divinity into your intimate life. In your personal, your bedroom in your home is your personal Kodesh. So how do we make that happen? What are the necessary ingredients to do that? What can we do to enhance our intimate life, and what possibly might be detracting from that? And there are a lot of moving parts to this recipe and how to make it work. And I'm going to try to touch upon all of them. There's a communication part of it. There's a halacha aspect of it. There's a hashkafa aspect of it. And then there's just practical tips. And each one is very, very important. And when they work together cohesively, they create the experience and intimacy that we want. Now, before I even continue from this, it's important to understand one very important point. And that is every one of us sitting here have our own individual lived experiences. We have our own marriages, our own experiences in our marriages, and our own challenges. We are all sitting here in different stages in our lives, and we don't all have the same, none of us have the same relationship with our spouses as the person sitting next to you. What we are talking about tonight, and what I'm going to touch upon tonight, is, I hope, useful and helpful for all stages of married life. But keep in mind, and this is very important, that it's useful and helpful in a basically healthy marriage. One that has respect, understanding, communication, and one with an ability to work through your differences most of the time. I will try to place a little bit of extra focus on your changing needs and intimacy and how to recognize them and how to address them. So one of the things I first do when I start the topic of intimacy when I'm teaching a college is I ask them for a favor. And I say to them, it's a big ask. I'm asking you for a really big favor, but I want to ask you a favor. I want you to do your best. When we start talking about intimacy, I want you to wipe the slate clean of everything you have in your head about intimacy. Because everything they have in their head about intimacy is either from a friend, the internet, Instagram, WhatsApp, a book, a movie, or a billboard. Almost everything they have in there. Now, some of what they might be accurate, might not. But I asked them to do me a favor and do your best to just wipe the slate clean so that they could be open to what I'm going to talk about. Now, obviously, I can't ask anyone here to wipe the slate clean. But what I can do, and what you could try to do, is stop and ask yourself, think for a minute. What in your daily life is possibly affecting or shaping how you think and feel about your intimate life? Stop and think for a minute. What did I read today on Instagram? What did I see today? How is that affecting my thoughts and my feelings when it comes to my intimate life? What did my friend tell me that she probably shouldn't have shared? Because we'll talk about that soon. All of these things can actually affect your personal intimate life. And you have to really stop and think about that. And hey, maybe that's something that has to leave my life. But that's for you to ponder after. How does it affect the Kedusha in your home? Is it elevating the Kedusha in your home? Does it hinder the Kedusha in your home? Does it hinder? Does it elevate? Which one? So let's understand it. Let's start at the very beginning. And let's understand the mitzvah of intimacy. There are two mitzvahs in the Torah regarding intimacy. The first one, yes, is the first mitzvah in the Torah, and that is pruruv. In order to have children, we need to engage in an act of intimacy, and that's a mitzvah. There is a second mitzvah that is completely disconnected from the mitzvah of pruruv. And that is the mitzvah of ayin. Mitzvah's ayin. Intimacy, the act of intimacy between a husband and a wife, is a mitzvah in and of itself. That means even when you're expecting, even when you're nursing, even if you're on birth control with a psak of a rub, hector from a rub, or if you're in menopause and pruruv was not a reality in your life anymore, mitzvahs ayin still applies. There is a mitzvah from the Torah for a husband and a wife to enjoy each other in a physical way. A man is required by Torah to provide his wife with three things. Number one, he's required to provide her with food, sustenance. Number two, he's required to provide her with a home, a shelter, clothing. And number three, it's written in Torah, mitzvahs ayin. So let me just explain the word ayin, because a lot of you are hearing the word ayin, you're thinking calendar maybe. Aina, right? Maybe. Aina has two meanings. Number one, yes, Aina means a time period. And a husband is obligated by Torah to set aside time for his wife for intimacy. Aina also means to answer, to respond. A husband is obligated to answer or to respond to his wife's needs in intimacy. It says, Yismach ishtoi b'davar mitzvah. A man is obligated to ensure that his wife has joy and pleasure in intimacy. This Torah encourages this physical pleasure, and there should be pleasure in intimacy. It is not unholy. Not only is it not unholy, it is a virtue. Torah provides the framework and the guidelines for our behavior, yes. And with that framework and that guideline, our intimate life falls into place. The details are left vague on purpose. Yeah, because each couple can then tune into what the other one needs. They could tune into each other. And that tuning into each other is crucial. This is what we want. So we know where the mitzvah comes from. We understand that. But then the next question is, where do we find the importance in Torah that Kedusha is attached to intimacy? Where does that come from? So there's a source for that too. At the end of Parsha Shmini, I think it's the 8th to the last pasuk, there is in the pasuk is a 3-word phrase, and it is v'hiskadishtem v'yisem kedosh. What does this mean? V'hiskadishtem v'yisem kedosh means you sanctify yourself, you will then be made holy. And this is talking in Parsha Shmini about every mitzvah. If you do my mitzvahs, that you're saying, you will be. There is an actual command for a person to make themselves. Then in the next parsha, right at the beginning, it says, "V'ha'isha kisazru," and a woman when she conceives, alluding to intimacy. Now, Rashi asks a famous question: why are these two topics connected? And the connection is Rashi, our Chachamim specifically connect intimacy with Kedusha. That when we make ourselves holy, this also applies specifically in this case, the connection to intimacy. We learn this from the fact that they're so close together. That when the mitzvah of intimacy is performed to Kedusha, we can bring down holy children and we can have holy marriages. And in addition, just by the way, if a person is meticulous in following the laws of Taras Mishpacha, you ask the shalas that you have to ask. You do the bedikas that you have to do. You're going to the mikvah on time, or you're doing chafifa properly. All of that is part of this kadisha as well. All of that, and you will be hosted. And you have no doubt when you do all of that, the hiyisem kadisha you will be. So while the fact remains that in order for any married couple to be intimate, they only require three things. They have to be married, they have to be tahor, and there has to be mutual consent. We are Hasidim, we are Chabad Hasidim, and we take everything a tefach. That is not enough for us. The beauty of Yiddishkeit is that we are always looking for Kadesh Atzmacha B'Mutar. We make ourselves holy with what's allowed to us. We take what's allowed to us and we take it high. Making yourself holy, specifically when it comes to intimacy. So intimacy is allowed, yes, but how do we make it kadosh? So there's that word again, kadosh, holy, what do we mean? So practically speaking, what does that mean? How do we accomplish it? How do we bring the divine, the Eibusher, into our bedroom life? And it can seem daunting. It can seem a little bit out of reach, but it's really not. You can get there. We all can. We have to just keep a few moving factors in mind. So the holiness and the pleasure, they go hand in hand. So the ultimate goal that a couple wants to achieve within intimacy is true, complete unity. The unity is what we want. A complete focus, a complete absorption in each other on all levels, physical, spiritual, and emotional. No distractions on all levels, your mind, your emotions, physically and spiritually. We have to sort of be bittul. We have to tune into each other. We have to learn to let go of your own ego, your own needs, your own demands. It's more of what can I do for you? That level of unity. When in Torah, when it says the Adam Yada as Chava, what does Yada mean? It says that Yada was alluding, Adam knew Chava. It's alluding to intimacy. Yada is a das the lashon of his fathers and his was a connection, meaning total unity, having a total knowledge of the other person, of what they need and what you can do for them. What does my spouse like? What can I do for them? That's how we're focused on. So what can he do for you? It's not what can you do for me. It's a complete unity come together. Now, when we are tuned into each other at this deep level, it actually, what's the reward for this level of unity? It enhances your physical pleasure. And it's all of your deep feelings that you have for each other come out in a physical way. That's what we're searching for. And Torah encourages the physical. Torah connects the physical and the spiritual. The Reishis Chachma teaches us. The concept of Kedusha is the concept of unity. This means that when a couple is intimate, they don't view themselves as two separate people, but you are one. In intimacy, 1 + 1 is 1. And it says, the Reishis Chachma says, when a husband and wife come together in nefesh, their souls are. And when they come together, the guf, that you're physically connected, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shaychin ba'isai echad. The Eibusher rests within that oneness. We're drawing down the Shekhinah. It happens when there's a complete oneness within the couple. And in Yiddishkeit, the highest level of Kedusha comes with that. It's like the reward. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is encouraging us to do this. We want that unity. So practically speaking, how do we get it? Well, a few tips. How do we attain that oneness? So the physical, believe it or not, is the easiest to control. Where are your cell phones? Your cell phone needs to be on airplane mode in another room, not blinking, pinging, or anything like that. A very common part of intimacy that's in halacha and mishpacha is that intimacy takes place when it's dark outside and darkness is in the bedroom as well. Darkness outside means no one's ringing your doorbell. The Amazon guy is not coming with the delivery. You hope not. Your kids are not knocking on your door. Your phones aren't ringing. If you have a house phone, your house phone's not. All of those distractions of life at nighttime are not there, or they hopefully shouldn't be there. And those are the ones, like I said, that we can control. Darkness in the bedroom, also many women, that provision, that halacha is there really for women to feel comfortable, to be able to let go, to be able to be more relaxed and more present. Now, what is being there spiritually? So spiritually kind of means that we're being bittul to each other, focusing on what the other one needs. At the time of zivug, at the time of that ultimate connection between a husband and a wife, when they come together, the kedusha and the they are the basar and one flesh, and when they are joined together as one, both physically and spiritually, the purpose of their marriage is crystallized in that moment. There is a oneness, a peace, a shalom, so to speak, where they are echad, they are one. And the Eibishter wants to be there. Now, let's talk emotional. It's important to address it because this is the one that can get in the way of a lot. Being emotionally present means really focusing on what's not letting you be focused. You have emotional distractions from your day. You got into a fight with your boss. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. One of your kids is about to get kicked out of school. Obviously you have disagreement with your husband. So obviously any disagreement that is affecting the connection with your husband specifically, obviously has to be addressed before intimacy. When it comes to other distractions of the day that are just in your mind, one of the beautiful things about intimacy and about arousal in intimacy is that arousal does have an amazing ability to kind of push things to the background. When we kind of try to let go, it does have that ability, again, depending on the level of the emotional distraction. But the idea is, this is where we talk about, maybe you have to talk about what was bothering you during your day with your husband. Get it off your chest, and then you might be able to better focus and better be able to. It's that tuning in to each other so that you can tune out the rest of it. Just letting go and being there for each other. And we have to figure out for each of us, what does that mean? Does that mean, like I said, taking a few minutes to talk things out that are bothering you, or saying, I really want to make sure we have time to talk about this. I know that you have a busy day tomorrow. When can we talk? Every couple is different, but you have to figure out what works for you. You want to get those things out of the way. And then the ultimate connection is physical, emotional. But then we have to take an important few moments to talk about what could be getting in the way of making those connections, or what can be enhancing those connections. So one of the very important parts of connecting in intimacy is maintaining a level of privacy about your intimacy. Privacy is a fundamental part of kedusha in intimacy. It's a very important part in order to achieve that level of connection. In halacha, the term kedusha means to the exclusion of all others. The first two dibros by Har Sinai were said in one breath. Anochi Hashem Elokecha and Leisi Alecha. I am Hashem your God, and there shall be no others. We are married to the Eibishter, okay? And a husband and wife, it's the same rules apply. I am for you, you are for me, and there should be no others. No one else is involved. Exclusion, in order for that unity to be achieved, it has to be to the exclusion of all others. No one knows when you're going to make up. It's not something that we share. No one knows what goes on in your intimate life. And we don't want to know what's going on in someone else's. Sometimes, if you stop and think, what someone shares with you about your intimate life can actually hinder your shalom lives. Because it works for one couple, it doesn't work. And it's something to really think about. And you can actually hinder someone else's shalom bias when you share. And it's important to keep in mind this. I talk about this a lot when I teach, and that is there's a very real trend that is happening in our world today, and that is the trend of couples, exclusively couples, hanging out together, having meals together, going out to eat together, going on vacation together, entertaining each other, and it's something that we have to really stop and think about and understand that it can definitely affect your marriage and your connection with your spouse. Every couple is different. Every couple, and it doesn't matter your age. Doesn't matter if you're a young newly married couple or you're my age, it makes no difference. No one is in one. And every couple acts differently. And having the actions of one couple or one person or their behavior on your mind is a problem. And it can be easily avoided. It is not healthy. And unfortunately, when it becomes the norm, it's very hard to stop and think, what do you mean? Everybody does it. Why shouldn't you? And anybody here who has children of marriageable age, or even before marriageable age, I really say is it's something that can be spoken about, and you can explain that it's not healthy. It breaks down boundaries. It breaks down very, very, very important barriers. Say never. I'm just saying it's something to keep in mind that it's a culture that we don't want to encourage because it's not healthy. Those are the words I like to use. Also, I will say, and my sister can attest to this, I feel, and it's something in general, this topic I feel very, very strongly about when it comes to privacy and social media. I will admit I'm a bit more than a bit behind the times when it comes to social media. I honestly understand it, but we'll get to that a different time. But I'm a very casual observer of social media, and I'm sure everyone here can agree with me that with time, there's a very slow desensitization of sharing and oversharing. And I don't care if you have a certain bag of chips and everyone's sorry to buy it. You know, that's a simple one. But there is something about maintaining a privacy boundary, especially about your intimate life, but even not, you know, one of the things, like the fact that we're giving this class to a room full of people on Zoom, took a very long time for our abundance to allow this to happen. And it's not because, and I want to really stress this, the topic of intimacy is not shameful. It is not embarrassing. It is, at its core, private. And when we talk about it without having those intentions and thoughts in mind, we cheapen it. And when somebody does, when a couple does post a picture of themselves, where there are obviously hepatinias and hep what we are allowed to do, understand. Well, there's two important things to understand there. Number one, and I hope everybody understands this, what you're seeing on social media is almost never real. You know, I always use the example of if anybody ever comes to my house, you're all welcome to come to my night. I love taking pictures of my kids. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I can tell them, and most of the pictures, they look okay. They're not smiling, but it's okay. They look okay. Yeah, but how did you manage to get that picture? Like, yeah, everybody gets along. No. There was a lot. There was some lollipops, and there was some pinching, and a sibling next to a sibling. You're too close to me. But the picture that you ultimately see on my wall, they all look one. You know, okay. But it took a lot to get here, and you should really have that lens whenever you're on social media. And what are you seeing, and what are you believing about a couple? Oh, they look so happy. Just keep in mind, they're showing you what they want you to see. And it's really fiction possible. You know, comparing yourself and comparing your relationship with other people based on what you see on the outside can actually affect your shoulders. And the truth is their relationship is between them, and behalf is between you and your husband, between both of you. It's special, it's beautiful, and it's unique for you. It works for you as a couple. And remember, when we share photos, when we post photos, and clearly, again, like I said before, that are clearly hepatitis and against what our advice and allow. Really, what that couple is losing, what that couple is missing out on, is Torah's approach and Torah's perspective, what touch means between a couple. And that couple is losing. That couple is not understanding. That touch between a husband and wife is so special. And it's so unique, and it's so important that we want to be so that it can stay. You know, when I teach my pals, I tell them, I said, I want you to feel that same spark from the first time your husband held your hand 30 years ago. And there's only one way, and that is if we are careful not to touch when we can't. Of course, we'll talk about it when we do our hugs. And you're also careful when you can. Because touch between a husband and wife is that special and that important. And we don't need to share it with the world, because when we do share it with the world, what are we doing? We're cheating it. We're taking away its uniqueness. We're taking away its what's special. Decades ago, I believe, there was a story in the Nashane newsletter. I don't even know how long ago. And the story was about a couple that was driving in a minivan, and they had other kids in the back, and they were stopped at a red light. And right next to the red light was a bus. And at the bus stop was a couple engaging in very, very, very open public display of affection. And all the kids are like, and the mother's panicking, and the father, very, very wise man, turned around, looked at this, it's not you, it's just the wrong place. Private, and then say, father, what, turn green in there. The idea is that when something becomes commercialized, it loses what's so special about it. So the next time you're about to post a picture or about to share something, ask yourself, will this help or will it hinder? And really, ultimately, we want to understand when it comes to the concept of privacy as a nation, as Klal Yisrael, one of the things that we know is that privacy keeps us safe. And we have a perfect example of this in the Torah. And we say it in davening every single day. When Bilam wanted to curse Bnei Yisrael, he stood on top of that mountain on his donkey. And what came out of his mouth? What did he see? How goodly are your tents, O Yaakov, your dwelling places, Israel. What did he see? Bilam noticed and Bilam saw that every time Israel traveled through the Midbar and they packed up their tents and then they set them up, they were very, very careful that you could never see into each other's homes. And that level of sneeze and that level of privacy is what kept him from persons. And we say it every single day, something that belongs to fascinating. So understand that this level of privacy is what keeps us safe. And the same idea applies to you. When we talk about the emotional connection and the way we want to connect, we have to remember there's also an idea of maintaining a level of dignity within your bed and life. So what is that? We have to be aware of Hashem's presence. We are aware that Hashem is always standing before us. And when Hashem is in your life, we will act in what's called a dignified. So being aware of Hashem's constant presence will cause a couple to act differently. So in Hilchos Tznius, in Kitzur Shulchan, we do have guidelines for intimacy and how to keep intimacy dignified and refined. So some of the things that it says is we should be fully unclothed, so that there is that pure basar, meeting of the heart. We should be fully covered. Intimacy needs to take place in the darkness. And it's also interesting to note that this provision of being intimate in darkness is all, like I said before, is there to protect a woman and her comfort. A husband and wife should be panim el panim, with the husband on top and the wife beneath him face to face. This is how we keep zivug intimacy dignified and refined. We have to be aware of our comfort level, and being aware of what we feel comfortable doing, wearing, and behaving. Now, intimacy is a journey. Intimacy is a journey that a husband and a wife take together. We explore, we try different things. Some things feel good, some things not so good. Some things felt good, but not good anymore. It's, you finally figured out what you liked, and then your body changed and it didn't work for you. This is all part of the journey that we take together. And that's where the emotional connection comes in, and the tuning into each other comes into play, and kind of being in touch with yourself too. Like, what's different in my body? Why am I feeling this? What's going on? And if you're not going to talk about what works for you and what doesn't work for you, then a real possibility is that the next time you're together, it's going to be a distraction because you didn't say it was on you. And you didn't express, you didn't say you feel. You have to be honest and open. And someone told me something, there's a very big difference between being open and being vulnerable. They're not the same thing. Being open, I'm open. Being vulnerable means talking about your feelings and expressing it in a way. Kindness, we're going to talk about that in a minute, that explains how you're feeling and what you're comfortable doing and what you're comfortable in terms of intimacy and what doesn't feel okay for you and what does. And like I said, we all know that as time goes by, we all change. Our bodies change, our level of energy changes, what arouses us changes. And the same goes for the men as well. Keep that in mind. They go through a lot of changes as they age as well. We change and we have to adapt with those changes. So we try something else and we see what works within the parameters and the guidelines of host. We make it work. We work together to make it work. A couple should and needs to reach out if they feel the need to do something new. You call a Rav. We'll speak to a Rav. Respect the fact that your body changes, and we have to be aware of those changes. We have to be up to speed to keep your intimate life moving in the right direction. We want to enhance our connection by possibly exploring new things. Now, besides what's called the 3 Isurim in intimacy, and even for these 3 Isurim, the 3 things that are not allowed, there is room for a couple to consult a Rav. What are the 3 Isurim? THLA, and Can you translate? Okay, then obviously a man wasting seed. Is a man gazing at a woman's genital area, and is a man kissing, lifting, sucking the genital area. These are what's called the 3 Isurim, and I want to reiterate again that even within those 3 Isurim, there is room for a couple to speak to a Rav. And again, remember this falls under the concept of dignity. Another way that we can enhance our relationship, and that is understanding and respecting the role of Mashpia and Makabel. Crash course on Mashpia and Makabel. I see there's a lot of people here from different communities, so I thought I need to give a little crash course on Mashpia and Makabel. The Eibishter created the world with Zachar and Nekeva. Zachar is male, Nekeva is female. A Zachar, male, was created with innate, inborn, inbred tendencies. Those innate, inborn, inbred tendencies of a man is to be a protector, to be a provider, to be a giver. A man is respecting his masculine energy. He feels the best when he is providing. That's called a mashpia, a giver. A woman, Nekeva, her innate, inbred tendencies are to be pampered, to be taken care of, to be protected. A woman is respecting her feminine energies when she is a makabel, when she is a receiver. Now, in today's world, in today's marriages, I will say, those lines are a little blurred when it comes to the roles of male and female and who's washing, who's cleaning, and who's cooking, and who's taking out the garbage. And my husband's taking out the garbage. He's not cleaning the bathroom, and I watch everybody's in. But they're blurred. Everyone's working. Everyone's, the jobs are. Okay, there is one area of your intimate life where we want to be careful to maintain those boundaries. We want to maintain, not boundaries, sorry. We want to be careful to maintain those roles. And that is within intimacy. Within intimacy, you are enhancing your relationship when you respect these roles. A husband receives his greatest pleasure in intimacy when he sees that his wife is happy, when he is giving to her. And when she receives, it's not give and take. No. When he is giving to her and she is accepting, she's giving back. It's a give. That's it. Now, obviously, there has to be a level of vulnerability on her part and a security to make herself be so vulnerable. And that's part of his job, to make sure that she feels secure and to make sure that she is comfortable. That's part of what his job is. And when she is at that point, then she can fully receive, and that's when she's. I do want to say one thing about the concept of mashpia makabel, and that is, and this is where the world has evolved, in my opinion. That's why I never understood feminism or anything like that. And that is, by being a makabel, a woman is not weak. A woman is not meek. A woman is not less than. Any of you know my mother? Seriously. So that's not what it means. A mashpia is compared to the sun. The sun is always giving, always on, always full of energy. The makabel is compared to the moon. The moon is never the same. It's always changing. It's always in flux. How do we as Yidden live our lives? We live our lives according to the moon. Rosh Chodesh, right now, is determined by the moon. Our Yom Tovim are determined by the moon. It's just why our power is subtle. But ultimately, all of us sitting here know that our moon affects our home. Our moon affects everything about our home. If I want to vent, I have to sit in my car, call my sister, have a 10-minute vent, and then I walk in the door. Everything's fine. Because everything's not fine, everyone could tell. That is the level of energy and the level of power that we as women have in our homes every day. That is what we have. So we are not, I thank God every day that I'm going to be attentive for me. Honestly, that would be a lot of pressure. And I don't want to be the person standing with the Shabbos meal making the speech. I'm fine. I know where my power resides. I know every one of us has to know and understand that our power is deep and our power is invincible. And we are the ones that really affect that aspect. And when we understand that what the Abishur wants from us and what our role is. And we understand that then, this is the ultimate, and that is we then understand that we have to be sensitive to the power that the Abishur gives us. We are very, very powerful beings. Not only is, your husband attracted to your voice, your eyes, your face, your hair, your goof, the Abishur created every single one of us with the ability to carry a piece of Hashem. And then the Abishur gave us the power to give birth to that one. And then we do that. That's a superpower. And we have to be sensitive. And we don't want to become, as a husband and wife, desensitized to each other. To each other's even physical growth. Now, Baruch Hashem, this is off, I think. That's okay. Baruch Hashem, Nida allows for that sensitivity to each other to be maintained. But in general, it's important to keep in mind, how am I walking around my house? How am I walking? At what level of undress am I walking around my bedroom? We want to maintain that sensitivity to each other. Those are the moving parts, what I call of the kedusha of intimacy. We have that unity, and then we have the branches kind of that help it. And that was the privacy, the dignity, mashpia, makabel, and being sensitive to. There's one very, very, very important key point that when I first started teaching, and when I was talking about the 3 things that a husband has to provide to his wife, one of my colleagues raised her hand. She said, I don't understand. Why doesn't a husband have to provide you with wealth? Why does it provide you with happiness? Why is intimacy number 3? So I was like, well, the fact that it is number 3 shows us how important it is. That was my answer, because that's really the bottom line. The fact that it's number 3 shows that it's as important or even more important than, or as important as food in a home. And it's never to be placed on the shelf, put aside, that it's unimportant. And this is where we talk about very, very, very important part of intimacy, and that is communication. Communication, healthy, practice, open, vulnerable communication is key, and it cannot be overstated. And that is something that you have to constantly work on. Constantly, our lives are always changing, and we have to adapt. If it's a new job, if it's a new stressor in your life, whatever it might be, new challenges, health challenges, whatever it might be, we all know nothing ever stays the same. We have to adapt our communication with it. And we have to, again, like I just said, like I just learned this, I just heard this now about there's a difference between being open and being vulnerable. And it was like a light bulb in my head. when I'm having any communication with people that are important in my life. So it's important that your spouse knows how you're feeling, what you're comfortable with, what works for you right now, today, and the same goes your husband to you. And don't forget that your emotions, battery died? No problem. Here goes my loud voice, but if I'm yelling, you have to tell me I'm sorry. We have to understand that we don't want our intimate life to suffer because it's usually the first thing that does. So when we talk about, we have to try to be aware of why it might be happening. But first, we're just going to talk about basic, what might be changing in my life that my intimate life isn't working, right? So this used to feel right, but it's not feeling right anymore. You want to be aware of what's going on in your body. It's important to stop and communicate. Communicate with your husband. This isn't feeling right for me anymore. This might feel better. This is an arousal point for me. Those change as well, and you have to communicate about it. We know that there are 4 stages of intimacy. There's the importance of desire, the importance of arousal, the importance of climax. These are all very important parts of intimacy. And we have to remember that those stages are moving along with us, meaning maybe now we need to spend a little bit more time on the hachanas, the foreplay part of intimacy. It kind of, you think you figured it out, and then it changed. And then it changed. You have to really, really be aware, and you have to let your husband know what parts of your body need more attention. Does clitoral stimulation work for you? Does it not? How do you relay that to your husband? How do you tell that to your husband? And that's what we're going to focus on. Words, the words that you use. When we talk about communication, and this is really about anything, honestly, but specifically, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And, there's I words and there's you words. You want to try to use the I words, it's you're having all these feelings about it and you want to get it out the right way. There's, last night was so beautiful. I felt so treasured and special when you did this, but at this point, this is how I felt, right? That comes across much differently than when you did this. There's I words and there's you words. I words, maybe a little more palatable, as they say. I also say, sometimes you're writing a text message and you write it and you're about to send, and you're like, that sounded harsh. Yeah. Delete, and you write it again. Same idea. Say it out loud to yourself in the mirror. How did that sound? How did that come across? And even more so, even bigger than that, is the when. You've been holding something in, you want to tell your husband, finally, you get the courage to tell him as he's walking out the door. That's not going to end well. It didn't even begin. You have to make sure that you're choosing the right time and the right space to have the conversation. Don't ignore it, but make sure it's in the right time and the right space. And this is a big myth that I like to bust. Hope everybody here knows it, but if you don't, he cannot read your mind. He cannot read your mind. Any sentence that starts with, well, you should know, is a sentence you shouldn't say. Rephrase that, because sometimes you have to say it even more than once, and that's how important it is. I'm sorry? Say, yeah, 100%. This everything I'm saying goes both ways, but I'm not talking to the men. Hopefully somebody is. We know that, again, we're talking to women in all different stages of life. We know that when you become pregnant, everything changes again, and you have to communicate that to your husband as well, right? One of the first things that happens when you're pregnant, your breasts are a little tight, right? Well, you gotta tell him. If you don't tell him, he's not gonna do. All of those things are important parts of communication, and let's be, like I said, open and vulnerable about it. So some of the basic questions that we get as college teachers and as mentors and as we give review classes is, well, how often should a couple be together? So first of all, straight up, we have to say that the Rebbe clearly told us and advised us that there is no virtue in abstaining. There is no virtue for a couple to not be together. Yes, there was a time, how many generations ago, where there was a time where it was not something that couples did very often. That is not for us. There is what I'm going to put out there as an average, and then I'm going to clarify the average. Okay? A couple that is on a relationship cycle of 2 weeks need up, 2 weeks to honeymoon, 2 weeks need up, 2 weeks not, and that is a cycle that you're on. A couple that is in, the average is 2 to 3 times a week. Now I want to clarify, more than that is not a problem. That's totally fine. But let's talk about, you know, the chemistry and the passion and the feelings that we have to have. Man is ish, woman is isha. What letters do they share? Aleph and shin. Aleph and shin is fire. That fire represents the passion between a husband and wife. What letters do they not share? The yod and the hey. The yod and the hey is Hashem, bringing Hashem. We all know what it means to have that passion, to have that chemistry, those levels of feelings for each other, and they're important. That we want those. Hopefully, we have those every time we come. When we come home from mikvah, that's what we're hoping for. Now, to keep that passion, to keep a fire alive, any fire, what do we have to do? We have to feed it. Right? We have to feed twigs, we have to put twigs in that bonfire to keep the fire high, right? That's what we do. So the same holds true with the passion, the fire of intimacy. It's not always the same. It can't be. And it can't always be with that intensity. And if you feel that in order to keep that level of intensity and those sparks alive, that you're doing things that you're not comfortable with, or you're tired, that's also okay. It's also okay to say I'm tired. And let's just, relax that. That's also okay. But what we really want to stop with, and again, also you have to remember another point. What's going on in your life? What's going on with your husband's life? Where are you? Like I said, does he have a new job? Did you move? Does he have longer hours? And that could also be why it changes. But it's less than that we want to think about as well. Because less than that is something to be like, hey, what's going on? It's really an awareness. It's very easy for months to go by where you're like, wait, you have to kind of be aware and be in it. And this is where we talk about what's called planned intimacy. What is planned intimacy? Now, there could be planned, there could be spontaneous. So we're first going to talk about time. Does it mean that you're both taking out a calendar? Not necessarily. No. But what does it mean? So we all know that mikvah night is planned. And on a day of THLA, or we know that we want to try and prepare ourselves to be in that kedusha frame of mind. Maybe try to do things during the day that allow for the kedusha to seep in. And at the same time, maybe you want to stay away from those things that might distract from the kedusha of the day. I just want to point out that for some of us, it's a very real reality that mikvah and the night of mikvah is stressful. For some women, mikvah and then the anticipation for intimacy on the night of mikvah is very, very stressful. And that's also normal. It's a normal phenomenon for some women. If there's just too much involved, it stresses them out. And I want to give you a little bit of a perspective about this. And but I think if anybody's struggling with this issue, it may help and it may not. But hopefully this will give you a different perspective. Because we do know, whenever there is an elevated level of kedusha, there are sometimes factors that want to take away the kedusha. So let me ask you a question. Today, if we're having shots, today's Wednesday, right? Anybody start preparing for shots yet? If you're like me, you did. I would say for about 3,000 years now, maybe more, everybody in the Jewish community knows for certainty when Shabbos is coming. Not only do we know when it's coming, we know down to the exact minute. And we know a full week before. You know what I'm surprised with? Yet, I'm going to venture a guess. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. I'm going to say 85% of homes are Shabbos at Jeff Hands. Everybody wants to take a shower at the same time. Why? Water is still going to be hot. I promise. Probably if you took it earlier, you'll get hot. An hour before Shabbos, 2 hours before Shabbos, there's no milk. We live in Fahrenheit. Like, we can buy milk on Thursday. It's still going to be fresh, I promise. The table's not set. And everybody's arguing. And everybody's angry. And for decades, it was about 20 years. That was my reality in my house, Erev Shabbos. Now, I will say that if you work Erev Shabbos, you and your husband work, you are excused from this. My parents worked Erev Shabbos, so yes, it's chaotic. I'm an organized person, and I don't work on Friday. Actually, I don't teach up here either. So there's absolutely no reason for that level of chaos in my house. There is no logic. And then I was given the illogical that changed my life. And that was THLA happened in the 1800s. Just that little bit of time. And because THLA happened right then, the Abishter gave, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Satan, the Sitra Achra, the Yetzer Hara that sits within all of us, at least me, permission to try to siphon away the Kedusha that comes into your home once Shabbos begins. In Chassidus, there is a very Tanya that explains it's called the Zen Le'umaseh. When there is a tremendous force of Kedusha, there is a countervailing force of Kliyah that wanted to siphon the Kedusha away. And when I heard this explanation, it changed my life. For me, Shabbos starts on Wednesday. Huge meals on Friday night. And if I want to come to my table or bring in Shabbos, like a normal person, that's what I do. And I bench lift 15-20 minutes before I have to. And my kids might still be fighting it. Sometimes I'll annoy them and I'll say, you know, that's your Shabbos to Sahara. They do get annoyed. Keep it to a minimum. But that's what it is, because there's no reason. But it changed my life. When I was given a reason, I could fight against it. So now, on your mikveh night, the level of Kedusha that's going to be in your home. And then imagine your mikveh night's Friday. Wow, you know, that's even more Kedusha. Be mindful. Do things. Figure out what is your stressor point about mikvah. And try, if it's, you know, your nails are taking you forever. And you hate, you could do your nails the day before. You're allowed to. Take off your polish, get them done. All you have to do the day of mikvah is just give a little fine to each nail, and that's it. Done. That takes the longest time. If your mikvah's Friday, don't have guests. Maybe if you cannot have guests, buy a little bit of takeout so you can cook less. And you will see when you prepare against this force of Sitra Achra there that wants to take away the Kedusha, it can make things easier for you. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying it can. And what we want to understand is we want to try to be prepared for those situations that might arise, that might get in the way around. We can't always, but we can do our best. And planning also means that you might be more prepared for the things that might come in. Just something to think about. Why am I always stressed out on the day of mikvah? What are the things that stress me out? And let me try to plan. Now, also when we talk about planning, we have to just talk about something really simple, and that is our lives are busy. You know, your kids all have food. For the last week and a half, there was a different bed in your bed for every other night. They're not intimacy. You didn't wash the linen today and half, right? That's where you and your husband have to look at each other and say, you know what? Everybody's feeling better. Everybody's in school. Let's buy takeout tonight. No dishes, no shopping. That's kind of fun. Or if you're feeling adventurous, message your husband. You know what? I'm going to make a really special sandwich. A special dinner tonight. Everybody has their thing, boxes them. Whatever it is, but that's the idea. That's what planning is. That's how important it is. We have to plan it and we have to make it a part of it. Spontaneous intimacy is amazing. It's beautiful. Doesn't always work. But you're not in the mood. Can you say no? Of course. How do you say no? How? You keep that in, but that's the important part. You know what? I just need a shower and change my clothes and I need to eat and then I'll see. What's wrong with that? You know, how would you feel if you initiated intimacy with your husband and he's think about it that way? Because we have to understand that this is normal. This is a normal part of life that we're not in the mood. And then there's a very real concept. And that is the concept of what we call the high desire spouse and the low desire spouse. Now, statistically speaking, yes, the high desire spouse is almost always the male. Statistically speaking, the low desire spouse is almost always the female, but that's not always the case. Okay, button again.
Because it's the battery would change.
Okay. That's not always the case. So what do we do in such a situation? In such a situation where we have a high desire spouse and a low desire spouse. Planned intimacy plays a very important role. Why? When there is planned intimacy between a husband and a wife, the spouse that is the high desire spouse doesn't feel like they're being rejected because they understand when it's going to happen. And the low desire spouse doesn't feel like they always have to say no, and they could do the things they need to do to put them in the right frame of mind for intimacy to happen. Now, when we talk about, it's off again.
Just because when you clicked and just later.
Touched it
No,
again.
that's fine, don't worry.
I'm touching.
No, you didn't touch it when it
It's all
clicked in. There you go, there you go.
Now, when we talk about initiating intimacy, I think it's important to understand that it's completely okay for a woman to initiate intimacy. She just has to be careful with the words that we use. We have to be cognizant and careful. We don't use crass or brazen words to initiate intimacy. And we have a beautiful, beautiful story in the Tanakh of this exact situation happening. Leah and Rachel, Leah and Rachel were talking one day, and Leah's son, Reuven, comes towards Leah with a bouquet of dudaim. Dudaim have been translated as jasmine. Jasmine was a well-known fertility flower. Rachel saw this bouquet of jasmine, and she asked Leah, "Can I have your flowers?" To which Leah answered, not paraphrasing, of course, "It's not enough that Yaakov is going to go to your tent tonight. You also want my flowers?" Rachel said, "No problem. It is all yours. I'll take the flowers." And sure enough, Yaakov came home from the field. Leah stepped out of the tent, and it's written that she said, "Eli to them, come to me." Now, there are even some versions that explain that she didn't actually verbalize this, but she communicated in a way that was nonverbal. But many versions say that she did say those words. And it's important to understand that from this union, I didn't touch it. I just so innocent. It says regarding Leah Imenu, someone whose wife appeases him with words of appeasement and adorns herself in front of him so that he should pay attention to her. On this, our rabbis have said that will come from her Chachamim and Nevinim like Leah, who came out Yisachar. From this union where Leah initiated intimacy with Yaakov, Yisachar was conceived, and from that union and from Yisachar came, 200 Rashi Sanhedrin. We as women know, we have words and ways to let our husband know what we need and what we're feeling and what we want. Another common question, another thing that people commonly talk about is when is the right time for intimacy? When is the right timing for intimacy? And again, the reason why we talk, see, not walk around, the reason why we talk about this is because there was a time where it was advised that husbands and wives wait till after THLA, which is like midnight, 1 a.m. for intimacy. Our Rebbe has clearly told us that this is not our way. This is not our derech. We do not wait. What do we wait for? We wait for tzes. We wait for darkness outside. And the mitzvah should take place in a completely darkened room. But I want to point out, using my example from before, that if it has been a week and a half where there has not been a moment for you and your husband to be together, and it's a legal holiday, and all your children are in school, and you're home, and your husband's home, and you're sitting and talking, and one thing leads to another, and you're both ready for intimacy. In such a situation, you pick yourself up, you go to your room, you pull down the room darkening shades, and it's okay. For next time you reevaluate, you try to see if you can make it better at night, but it's okay in such a situation where you haven't had the time, and you don't know when you're going to have the time again. In such a situation, it is okay. And keep that in mind. And remember what I said, life changes, circumstances changes, and you have to change with it, and you have to work with it. And you have to reach out if you need that. And obviously, most importantly, and I said it a few times, you have to communicate about what works for you, what you like, and what touch you appreciate, what touch you don't appreciate, and recognize that changes too. That changes too. One of the very common analogies that we give when we're talking about Taharas Mishpacha, and that is how our bedroom in our home is like the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, when Klal Yisrael was doing what the Eibishter wanted, when we were keeping Torah mitzvahs, when we had Ahavas Yisrael, inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, on top of the Aron, the Kruvim were in what's called a loving embrace, face to face. And intimacy is actually referred to as Maisa Kruvim, what the Kruvim the way the Kruvim embraced each other. And emanating out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim was a beautiful, peaceful feeling that all of Klal Yisrael felt. We felt that the Eibusher was happy with us. We felt that the Eibusher appreciated us, that we were doing the right thing. And when the opposite was true, when we were not doing what the Eibusher said, when we were not having Ahavas Yisrael, when we were not keeping Torah mitzvahs, the Kruvim and the Kodesh HaKadoshim were back. And emanating out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim was a negative feeling. We felt that the Eibusher was not happy with us. The same holds true with your intimate life. When a husband and wife, when your intimate life is working, moving along, you're communicating, it just feels good. You feel it in your heart the next day. You feel it in your mind. You feel it in your home. Your whole atmosphere of your home is permeating a happiness. And yeah, it's not always mind-blowing. Sometimes it's gentle and peaceful, and that's fine, and that's what we want. But you're both feeling it. You're feeling it inside. And unfortunately, when our intimate life hits a bump in the road, and it happens to everybody, and we need to know, and this is important, we need to know how to recognize it and then how to address it. When you find, if it ever happens to you, I'm going to give you like a very simple guideline, so to speak, that you could know, you know what, I need to reach out. If you become Nida and it's really not a big deal and it's not bothering you. One cycle, you go, you do everything you have to do, you go to the mikvah, intimacy is, you're just not feeling it. One cycle comes and goes, let it go. Don't worry about it, don't harp on it, it happens, just let it go. If a second cycle comes and goes with those same apathetic feelings, you're just not feeling it. Either you or your husband, this is not just about you. If that second cycle comes and goes, you need to put up in your mind what we call a pink flag. Like, this is weird. This is unusual for us. What's going on? If a third cycle comes and goes, the same apathy, no anticipation on either one of your parts, it's where we say you put up a red flag. Now, this is not a red flag that no, it's not a red flag like your marriage is over, chas v'shalom, no. It's a red flag that's letting you know, hey, wait a minute. Our regular lines of communication are down. Something's wrong. Something's off, and we don't want to ignore it. What I always say is we don't want this bump in the road to turn into like this huge boulder that we can't just scale it. These things just grow. They don't disappear. We have to do our best to seek help. We don't want to just live with it. And we want to understand that there are very normal reasons why it might be happening. They could be physical. You started birth control with the heter of a rav. That's affecting your hormones. It's making you moody. You're drying you out. It's just not, and you don't even realize it. You might not even realize it till 3 months out that that's what's happening. That's physical. It happens to some women. They give birth and their pelvic floor shifts. And intimacy is painful. It's actually painful. It's never supposed to be painful. And then guess what? Arousal happens in your brain. And if your brain, the minute your brain starts associating intimacy with pain, arousal is not happening. You need to go to a pelvic floor specialist. You need to get it checked out. I'll lose my train of thought, like I just said. Physical. It could be a medication that your husband is taking, an anti-anxiety medication, a thyroid medication, a blood pressure medication, anything like that. All of those medications affect your chemical balance, and they could be affecting your ability to be aroused. You have to recognize it, and you have to get it addressed. Men have male dysfunction issues that they're not very happy or eager to get checked out. You have to kind of hold his hand and guide him along and call the doctor. And it's a common problem, but you have to help him, I would imagine. In most cases, that's what we have to do. It is for erectile dysfunction, help is available, but you might have to help him out. And like I said, medications can be doing it as well. But there's also an emotional factor. And intimacy can be read as into me see. And there's something getting in the way of being able to see each other. For example, you have begged your husband repeatedly, I cannot do bedtime alone. I can't. I need your help. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm washed out. I can't do it. And he's not there. And no matter how many times you've asked him, no matter how many times you stated your case, he's just not there. You may not even be realizing resentment builds up, feelings, and you're just not present when it comes to intimacy. That could be part of it. Or, your husband has asked you repeatedly, I'm having a very hard time. We're having a very hard time paying the bills. It's just not working. I need your help. We have to do this together. And you're like, yeah. And then you see something that you want, and then you buy it. And it's one more bill that your husband has to worry about. And one more thing that he has to stress out about. And you're not, and he's just too stressed out, and that emotional connection is gone. What do you have to be careful of? You have to get someone to help you, because your lines of communication are down. And this is where I have to stop, and I have to remind you about mikvah.org. Mikvah.org is an unbelievable organization that has expanded in the last 5 years. The resources that they have available for all of you, for everyone, there aren't even words for what they've done. And you need to avail yourself of their resources. They have a beautiful podcast. His name is Rabbi Yisrael Shurak. He has some Shalom Bayis podcasts that are amazing. I would recommend anybody who wants to listen to them. They have, but not just that, they have referral listings. They have referrals for people to get the help that they need. Marriage coaches, marriage therapists, doctors, the psychologists, psychiatrists, anything you might need is on their referral list. And you would be doing yourself a tremendous favor. If not, to mikvah.org, reliefhelp.org is very, very helpful. And they provide emotional and mental health referrals to help you. And you want to take advantage of those referrals and of mikvah.org's website. It is mind-blowingly amazing. Also keep in mind one more thing, that no couple, one of the very big strains on a marriage, and some of the very, very big strains on Shalom Bayis, is prolonged staining. Prolonged staining and prolonged periods of nida. No woman should have to suffer through this, and we have to know that we have a resource. Taharenu is an amazing resource for you to reach out to specifically for this reason. They can help you with herbs, vitamins, remedies, doctors possibly. I just want to point out that no one at any point in time who is not a Rav is able to tell you what we consider like a Rav's psak. Oh, take this birth control and this will stop your staining. You would have to speak to a Rav in order to do that. But when it comes to basic things about why you might be staining, they do have very, very good advice. And what we want to understand is, from everything that I just said, there is a tremendous amount of moving parts here. There is a lot to keep in mind. And we have to constantly be tuning the machine and mixing the ingredients and figuring out what we have to change. And what we want to remember is, one of the things we know with children, raising children, is children that have boundaries, children that have structure, are the children that are happy. These guidelines, these boundaries that the Eibishter gave us when it comes specifically to Taharas HaMishpacha, enhance your connection. We shouldn't feel stifled by them. The same way structure for a child makes them feel more secure, the same ideas with your intimate life. This structure, these guidelines can actually enhance your connection. Yeah, you sure? Okay.
You're excellent.
Yeah, because I feel like, okay, no problem. I'm gonna take a drink. I'm gonna just touch on a little bit the Hasidic aspect of intimacy and understanding that as Hasidim, we are very careful with how we perform this mitzvah. And the question we have to understand is why? Why does it matter? So we don't have a say in the neshama that the Eibishter gives us when it comes to conceiving a child. That's not, we have no say. So as a couple, where is your input? It's written in Perek Beis of Tanya that a parent's input is, it says at the end of Perek Beis, it says, Ve'im yikadesh es atzmai yamshech levush kadosh lenishmas b'nai. If you sanctify yourself, you will draw down a holy garment for the neshama of your child. Our input is in this levush, in this garment. And in Tanya, it explains that this garment is the machshava, tibor, and maisa, the thought, speech, and deed of the child. I like visual things, so when I think of this levush, I think of an armor. I think that we are providing our children with an armor that enwraps their neshama. That's like, your 16-year-old son has a moral dilemma and he makes the right choice. That's what a husband and wife provided that strong armor. So that means that there is what's called in if you sanctify yourself specifically within intimacy. There are things that we can do specifically within intimacy that are what we call the holy ways of intimacy. And the Reishis Chachma gives us, the Reishis Chachma is a sefer in Kabbalah, and there's chapters specifically about holiness and intimacy, and he gives us specific ways for a husband and wife to engage in intimacy in a holy manner. So we understand that the male energy is the mashpia, the female energy is the makabel. Therefore, like I mentioned before, the husband is on top, the wife is on bottom, and they are face to face like the kruvim. There is constant feedback between them. Now, I want to point out that there are other positions in intimacy that are not prohibited. We're not talking now asur mutar, but they are not considered refined in the way of kedusha. But important, but when a need arises for a husband and wife to explore a way that you are more comfortable. You're pregnant, you can't be on your back. You're not experiencing pleasure on your back. It's a very, very common thing for a couple to pick up a phone and call the Rav, and this is one of the most common questions that a Rav gets when it comes to intimacy. The same way you wouldn't change your medication that the doctor gave you without calling your doctor, pick up the phone and call the Rav to change something to make your shalom bias better, to make your intimate life better. We know that the way we as Klal Yisrael connect to the Eibishter is through davening. And when we daven, we sing, we thank Hashem, we praise Hashem in a loud voice. And then when it comes to the holiest part of davening, we're quiet. Why? Why in Shemana Esrei are we quiet? Because our connection to the Eibishter is so great that it transcends the words. And the same thing holds true for intimacy. Throughout intimacy, words of love and words of affection and words of arousal for women. Women are very audio. We need words. Words help us with our arousal. But when it comes to the moment of tashmish, and tashmish means intercourse, when it comes to that moment, we refrain from speaking. Our connection is that great, and we're drawing down the Shekhinah. We want to be mindful and careful with the words that we use. It's also explained that the deepest connection between a husband and wife, the Reishis Chachma says, is that they should both be completely unclothed, so that they could be kibasar echad, like one flesh. And then the Reishis Chachma explains in a beautiful way when a husband and wife share a deep lip-to-lip kiss within intimacy. His lips are the Yud and the Hey of Hashem's name, and her lips are the Vav and the Hey of Hashem's name. And when they share a kiss within intimacy, the name of Hashem is complete, and the Shekhinah is resting between them. There's also the idea of having holy kavanas in intimacy, having holy thoughts in intimacy. And I want to express, and I want to say very, very clearly that for every single person here, your holy kavana is not meant to be a distraction. Meaning, for you, the only thing you could focus on, you could think is think about your husband. That is a holy thought. That's a perfectly beautiful holy thought. Yes, it's written that thinking of the letters of Hashem's name is a holy thought, or thinking of an image of a tzaddik is a holy thought as well. However, if that doesn't work for you, then that's a distraction for you, and that's not for you. And what is for you? Thinking about your husband thinking about you. And that is 100% a holy thought. And that's what we want to keep in mind. And we don't want it to be a distraction. I do want to point out, and I'm going to go through it very, very quickly, and that is the idea of negative thoughts. There are a list of what's called the 9 negative midos. The 9 negative midos are all taken from the Gemara. They are the list of 9 negative thoughts, feelings, or intentions that if either a husband or a wife have these negative thoughts, feelings, or intentions, they should not engage in intimacy, because it can have a negative effect on a child conceived from such a. I'm going to go through them quickly. I'll point out the ones that I think are the most important. Number 1 is b'nei senua, children of a woman who is hated. You hate your husband. If you hate your wife, you're not allowed to engage in intimacy. And I also want to say one more thing before I continue, that in a marriage with communication, we're open and we're talking, and we hopefully don't reach these points where b'nei senua, where there's hatred. Hatred is a very strong word. B'nei inusa is children of a woman who's forced. There has to be consent. between the husband and the wife to engage in intimacy. B'nai nidoi, there's a few different definitions. Number one, a child conceived while the woman is nida. Number two, if either the child conceived while either the husband or wife is sitting shiva. Or number three, the child conceived if the husband is excommunicated. Again, doesn't really apply. Number four, I would say, very applicable, and that is B'nai Mariva. What does B'nai Mariva mean? B'nai Mariva means the children of strife. When there is anger, tension, friction between a husband and a wife in a normal marriage, that happens. We do not engage in intimacy until we restore love and peace. That makes sense? That's something that happens in many marriages. B'nai Shikras, depending on your lifestyle, B'nai Shikras, the children of the intoxicated. If either one of you is drunk, and drunk means drunk, we do not engage in intimacy until we sober up. Number six is B'nai THLA, the child of one divorced in his heart, of a husband and wife, and they have made up with a certainty that they are getting a divorce, they can no longer be together. Then there's B'nai Yerbuvia. B'nai Yerbuvia is the children of the intermingled. This applied more to a time when a husband had two wives, he had to know which one he was with. Then there's B'nai Chitzufa, and this kind of refers to what we said before, and this is called the children of the brazen. The children of the brazen refers to a child conceived by a woman who asks or demands for intimacy in a crass or brazen way. And then we have B'nai Timura. And what is B'nai Timur? B'nai Timur are the children of the intermingled, and this is very important, something to keep in mind. This is children conceived by a man or a woman who has thoughts of another man or woman when engaging in intimacy with his or her spouse. And this goes back to what I said before. What we do during the day, what we do in our life affects our thoughts. And couples that are hanging out with other couples, no one is immune from the thoughts that come into their mind, and that is why I caution against the practice of couples hanging out. This is one of the many reasons why we don't want to have those thoughts. It's also mentioned B'nai Yeshena, children conceived while she is asleep. Obviously, what are every single one of the 9 or 10 that I just mentioned missing? None of them have that unity. None of them. You are not focused, you are not absorbed, you are not thinking about each other in any one of these. And that is what we want. Okay, you guys let me know if you want. I'm basically done. I'm basically done. I just want to go through a few things to keep in mind from a halacha perspective. We mentioned that intimacy takes place in the dark. We spoke about position of intimacy. There's no reason to go into it again. The intimacy takes place in the dark. I do want to point out some preparations, spiritual preparations that a husband and wife prepare themselves before intimacy. So number one, also I did mention one more thing about the room. It is halacha that a room that intimacy be performed in a private manner, meaning there has to be a lock on the door. Nobody can know what you're doing. If you're a guest in someone's home, maybe bring your own sheets, things like that. Intimacy is allowed with a sleeping child in the room. If that child is awake, that child cannot yet have the ability to speak. We do not engage in intimacy in front of svarim or holy objects. And it is forbidden to be intimate under the sun, the moon, and the stars. In a tent is fine if that's your thing. But the proper place for intimacy is on a bed, in a bed. Before intimacy, some of the spiritual hachanas that a husband and wife can do are, again, I want to point out the things I'm about to tell you do not have to take place immediately before intimacy. They could happen 2-3 hours before, that's fine. They're not meant to be hindrances to your connection with your husband, but some spiritual preps that you could do are, number one, if you say Krishma, if you're careful with saying Krishma, you say Krishma at Hamapil. It's a minhag to wash negelvasser before intimacy. It's a minhag to say Kapitel Chaf Gimel before intimacy. It's a minhag to say Atifa B'Kitzva before intimacy. Those are the minhagim that, again, none of these need to happen. Sorry? Atifa B'Kitzva. If you say Krishma right before Hamapil, there's this little paragraph. So it's right there. Now, so I had it in my notes that it's for the husband to say, and Rabbi Chaikin said, why just the husband? Why can't the wife? So now I say the wife. Just something to keep in mind. Another thing is that's to keep in mind is that if either of you walk into the bathroom where there is a toilet, from the time you exit the bathroom, even if you did not use the bathroom, the tumah of the bathroom is still associated, kind of like connected to your body. And 9 to 12 minutes need to pass before actual tashmish takes place. Foreplay is not a problem. Lo hevanti. So if you went into the bathroom just to wash your hands, right? And you went back into bed. Before actual intercourse takes place, you need to wait between 9 and 12 minutes. Not foreplay, not hachanas, just actual intercourse. Even if you do necklace, even if the toilet is closed. I asked all these questions, yes. Even if you, now, let's talk a little bit, I'm almost done, I'm so sorry. See, I should have stopped when I was ahead. We'll talk a little bit about after intimacy. It's important that a husband and wife wipe off any excess zera that might be on your body. Zera is, when it's inside your body, obviously, it's considered a live living thing. When zera is resting on your skin, sperm is resting on your skin, it needs to be wiped off. I say always use a dark washcloth, dark hand towel. We don't want to look at our skin. We don't want to look at anything we wipe ourselves with, but it's important to wipe it off. It is halacha to wash nagelwasser after intimacy. If you fall asleep, that's fine. When you wake up, you go wash nagelwasser. It's okay. After intimacy, I think a lot of us know this. It's important to use the bathroom, flush the bacteria out of your urethra. Very, very important. There is a Indian in Kabbalah to sprinkle water on the side of the bed, on the floor where intimacy took place. And that is the halachas of intimacy. Now, I just want to say one more thing and then we're done. I just gave you a lot of information and that you need to process, that you need to absorb and be like, what? I never heard that before. Okay. Some of it may seem a lot and you might be feeling a little bit like, wait a minute, is everything I did up until now wrong? And you want to bring Kedusha in, and what am I doing that's not right? And you could be doubtful, you could be regretful, and that is not what I want you to walk out of here with. What I want you to walk out of here with is to understand what can, maybe if I didn't do things right in the past, what can I do now? Can it be rectified? And the answer is yes, it can. In the Sefer, Sheyakadesh Atzmai, this concept of rectifying the past is discussed. How? It explains that one who is Mekusher, connected to our Rabbeim, the rectification can take place. First, by making the haflata between you and your husband from now on to improve in this area and to keep these laws more carefully. By really trying your best to make that change. The Frierdiker Rebbe says that by sending your children to a meisid of the Rebbe, namely the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe Rayatz, and our Rebbe will change these levushim, these garments that surround the neshama of your children that may have been created without this level of kedusha. The Rebbeim can be metaher. They can purify their Hasidim retroactively. The Rebbe writes in Igros Kodesh, page 376, 23, that one way of being metaken, of fixing the past, is by helping others and encouraging others to keep this mitzvah. They can also purify those children that are already born retroactively. The lack of kedusha in the past can be repaired. Every Matzah Shabbos, when we say v'yitein lecha, we say pri vitnecha upri admascha. What is the connection between your womb and the fruit of the earth? So in a Sefer, it explains that just like when a seed is planted and it doesn't grow, it's just not working. What do? We go back to the ground, we turn over the soil so it can be replowed and then grow properly. Father and a mother can do the same. They can determine that from now on, they will be careful, they will improve in this area, and they will draw down a Zuriya Chadasha, a new planting. So giving this class is never the same. And I think it's because as I change, I perceive things differently, I do things differently, and I'm happy that I was able to share it with you. And obviously, what I want you to understand is we are always working, we're always trying to figure out what we can do better. We see something that needs to be changed and addressed, and we address it. And we don't just sit by, we do things to actively improve our marriage. So anybody who's here tonight, here physically, here watching, you're living proof that there's a commitment to this mitzvah. And I really hope, and I'm benching everybody, you and myself, that everything we've heard tonight will help you, will help, and it resonated with you, and that you could take something home with you to bring more kedusha into your marriages. Wow. So wedding, it's really